Hey everybody, this is Bobby Carlton from FS Studio, and I am, of course, with Pete, and we're doing something a little different today. Pete, you want to let everybody know where we are at?
Okay, well, this is still a work in progress, but we're basically investigating Hub's cloud from Mozilla. So there's a 3D virtual space called hubs.mozilla.com, and you can go there and create rooms and do 3D stuff, but it's open source. So you can also create your own version of that and then modify it, add things to it, do whatever. So we're kind of exploring that.
Well, I'm saying we are, and I just want to let the audience know that I'm actually in the space through a desktop PC, while Pete is in the space through a headset.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that's good about Hub's Cloud is it very platform agnostic, and in fact I am in this space in a Quest headset, but I'm not running a special app. I just ran the Quest browser and I entered a URL. And when I got to the URL, it said, "Oh, this website supports VR. WebXR is actually what they're using nowadays. So you can actually go into this internet URL. You can actually enter it as a world and walk around." So sure enough, I did, and that's what we're doing. And that's one of the reasons that we're investigating this technology is because it would allow us to create rooms and experiences that anyone can enter no matter what hardware they have. He's in a browser on a desktop. I'm in a headset. I believe Alain, our camera person, is in a headset as well.
Interesting thing is like
Oh,
so for me, for example, for like the way that Pete is moving around, right? He's using his Oculus Quest controllers. He's got his headset, and it's mimicking his real world movements in virtual
and I
reality.
have hands.
And he has hands where, as to a desktop, I'm actually using your keyboard. So I'm using the W, move forward, the S and the AD. I'm using my mouse to navigate around, look around. So much sort of like if you play games, if you're a gamer, then you know those type of motions and movements. And so there's different mechanics for each approach, but they work, pretty flawlessly.
And of course, that's why our avatars look different than usual. We're experimenting. We're looking at all the different avatars that are available, but they're just a 3D model. So
Yeah.
we should be able to create any sort of avatar we want. The other angle on this is not only are we in Hub's cloud, but you notice the environment looks totally different. And down at my feet here, I don't know if you're familiar with FS Studio, the company that I work for, but this is basically the FS Studio logo, and this is the FS Studio hub space that we're creating for our own use. We want to, as the saying goes in the programming world, we want to eat our own dog food. We want to start having our team meetings in here, and we want to start doing, things like collaboration thing. For example, reviewing a 3D model is one thing that we could be doing in here. Sprints and that sort of thing. And one of the reasons we want to do that is because it's more immersive in here. Even though Bobby's on a desktop, I can still tell if he's looking at me. And really, with the headset, it's much more immersive because you have your hands. But there's a lot of research that's already out there that sort of shows that it's VR is more immersive and that people get more of an emotional connection during interactions in VR. And that's one of the reasons we want to start doing that. Not only that, with COVID and remote working and all that stuff, FS Studio has sort of always been remote, even before COVID. So we've had it in our minds for a long time that, hey, we should get some sort of VR meeting stuff going. And hey, we finally got going on it.
You have this space, and as Pete's talking about all these sort of advantages of virtual reality, and the sort of the tools and sort of the user experience of VR, like from the desktop side of it, I can see on my computer I have an invite button where I can literally just click the invite button and I can invite someone into the space very easily through an email message or a text message. I also have the ability to bring in a camera. I can use change my avatar. I can bring in a 3D model. all into the scene. I can upload a GIF. So there's a lot of really cool tools that Mozilla Hubs or
Show
this,
us show us the camera, and if it doesn't work, it's probably my fault because
no, okay, let's try it out. Let's see.
oh, there we go. There's the camera.
And there's my camera. And there's and then of course I can. Yeah, we can take a selfie. Get over here, Alan. So Alan, hold on, let's take a picture. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Nice. I just
right on.
So again, and here's like all these great tools that we have access to. I believe we can change the timing, 15 seconds, 7 seconds. Let's look at some other cool things that we can do here. So let's take out the camera and let's bring in a 3D model. Let's see, what can I bring in to the room? A haunted avatar. Give it a second. As you can see, it's working into the platform. It might take a while because I did pick a pretty intense model. What happened? Did it not go through?
So did you bring that in from your computer, or
No,
did you get it?
It's part of one of the assets inside of.
Right. So one of the cool things about this that I've seen, because I have to set all the stuff up in the back end, is that Hubs Cloud supports a bunch of different third-party integrations,
Yes.
one of which is Sketchfab. So
Yep.
more than likely that model that you just bought in came from Sketchfab, which is pretty neat. And again, so that would allow us, if we want to do design reviews on 3D models, worst case, we can put it up on Sketchfab and then import it in here from Sketchfab. There's other mechanisms. If you have a model on your computer, you can import that without sending it to Sketchfab. But
yeah, so but there's some great tools here that we can bring into the environment. And of course, I can react, I can hit emojis. Or if I think something, or if I don't like something, I can pull that up. This space also allows for chatting. So if on the PC side, I can actually click on the chat button and then have a side note chat with people. I can actually have some conversations, and not disrupt sort of the overall conversation that's going on in the room.
So let's take a little walk over here. One of the things people really want when they have a social VR space, and you get like 20 or 30 people in there, but a natural tendency is to have 2 or 3 people start talking about something, and they want to go and they want to actually continue talking about that and let the rest of the people talk about whatever they're talking about. So we want to have the idea of private meeting spaces where you can kind of go, oh, all right, let's go over here and have a sidebar. So it's sort of hard to demonstrate on a video, but Hubs Cloud supports this concept of audio zones. So this little island out here is in its own audio zone. That means basically once you get on that ramp there going back, nobody else can hear us, and we can't really hear anyone else.
Yeah, okay. When I was coming up the ramp, I couldn't hear you until I actually entered this area. So, and as Pete said, this is all this awesome functionality of being able to have a conversation. Oh, Alan just walked away to make sure.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that I should mention is not only is this audio zone concept useful for keeping conversations apart. We've talked about in previous episodes, one of the biggest issues with scaling VR, and in fact the biggest issue in scaling VR, is mixing the audio mixes so that everybody can hear everybody else at the right volume and all that kind of thing. So audio zones really help manage that by saying, okay, look, if anybody that wants to go have a conversation about this, go there, and then there's only 10 of you or 20 of you, and the other 50 people over there, we don't have to worry about trying to mix the audio. So it helps performance quite a bit.
And so Pete, can you tell the audience sort of like What was involved with porting this build into this space? Was it difficult? What were like some of the roadblocks that your challenges you had, or
Well,
was it easy?
they've done a really good job, and basically I'll say it was really easy and it was really hard because you're basically dealing with servers on the internet. So what they have, Hub's Cloud has prepared some installation scripts basically for popular web server uh, services. For example, Amazon Web Services, is they are one of the bigger companies that lease out or rent out web servers. So basically, chances are, if you go to a website, there's probably a 30% chance that that website is hosted by Amazon Web Services. The Mozilla people who created Hubs, they have a script that's tailored for Amazon Web Services. So you can basically log into your Amazon account, give them your credit card, obviously, but then you run their script and you answer a bunch of questions and go away for 20 minutes. You come back and it's all set up. That did, in fact, work. The first time I tried it, boom, 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 magic. You might probably remember like a month ago when I was all excited and I got you guys in here. And then I said, well, yeah, but we can't do anything with it because it's not set up with the right options in that. What I wanted to do is basically the same thing that Mozilla does. So there's a website, mozilla.com. If you go there, it's not a 3D website, but if you go to hubs.mozilla.com, that's where you see, oh, we can create a 3D room and blah, blah, blah. So I was trying to do something like that. Instead of installing it to a domain, I was trying to install it to spaces.domain. That's where their script, that's where I ran into trouble. That's where it took me a long time to figure out how to get it to install properly. At the same time, there were other things that I was trying to get set up properly that I wasn't worried about when I did it quickly the first time. But they're not really issues with setting up hubs. They're issues with administering a web server and getting security certificates and doing all of this other stuff that you need to do to have your website function properly. So it was all that other stuff. And I'm not like a web expert. I've done my share of it over the years. So it took me a little while to learn some of these things.
Well, why don't you take us on a tour of the rest of the space? Let's maybe take some people.
Yeah, that was what I was just going to say. I was going to say, let's go take a look at the.
Right.
Okay, so I'll lead the way. So this is just sort of exploring some of the features that Hubs has that a generic WebGL doesn't have. That big square thing is a water panel that, it doesn't look right. I'm just trying to roughly see what can be done with it. And then obviously there's a particle system that could probably use a lot of work in like the speed and the number of particles and all that other stuff. But it's just to demonstrate that we have the ability to use particle systems in here to make the space look a little better than the stock space of just a WebGL model, right? So then if you come in here and maybe come right in here and hit your space bar, you can look over there at those couches. And you can see, yeah, there you go.
Well, you can sit down.
Yeah. So what we used to call in Second Life, we used to call these pose balls. Because typically there would be like a little sphere. And if you click on the sphere, it basically moves your avatar over to that spot. It can also give you a pose.
It transported me back to the entrance. How hard is it for you to bring like a video screen? Like, is it a drag and drop type of process? Like, what do you do on your side?
Well, let's go up here where there's and basically, that bouncing basketball that came from Sketchfab, and that's just an animation. It's not using physics or anything, but it works. I mean, there it is.
Yeah, it's bouncing.
This thing here. So this is an interactable object. I can create. Oh, there. Yeah, you see that? I just grabbed a copy of it, and moved it up there. So this is sort of an object dispenser concept. There's a link over here that's supposed to be a media link, but it's broken. But to answer your question, when I get it all set up and working, it would be very easy. That's why I was trying to get those other rooms linked in down near the hub, because those other rooms have things in them like that. They have video screens and other stuff, and I want to play with that. I'm still concerned with things like, oh, this certificate isn't working, and that's why the links aren't working. So I kind of getting a little bogged down in the details right now. But once I get all of that stuff worked out, then that's one of the things that Hubs lets you do is definitely create videos, a panel with videos in it. I think I might be able to create one. Oh, what did I just create?
You have a giant boombox up on top of the roof, and we got something else starting to show up in the world.
Yeah, it was this thing that I just created, I think. Or no, is that you?
Oh no! Someone brought that to life. Who is that?
Sometimes you create things and then they fall through the world, because you can create things that are and say that they have physics. But there's two aspects of this. There's the going up and creating something in the world here, which means as soon as we all leave, it's gone. There's also an editor. So Hubs has a scene editor, and in fact, this scene that we're in, there's the main model of with the couches and the floor and all the main geometry here. But this boom box, this was not part of the main model. The basketball, that was not part of the main model. All of those little interactive things that I placed on the couches where you can sit, those are not part of the main model. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you add, that you can add in this editor. So this whole FS Studio Hub could have been broken into pieces, and I could load the pieces in and move them around and create essentially the same thing. That's where you might need to create the video panel, because I don't see a video panel.
I'm gonna share my camera. Let's see here. Let's see what happens. Oh, there you are. You can see me. Can you see me?
Oh yeah. How did you do that?
I hit share. So on the desktop, there is tools that say share, and I can hit share and bring my camera in. I also have the ability to stop it, and I can also bring in my screen, so I can share my screen.
Right.
So let's look at this.
I remember that. I don't have those tools because I'm in the headset. So I don't have a camera to share, and I don't have a screen to share. So
there's a lot of really great functionality with this platform.
Well, that's the thing is, like, if you were going to do a presentation in here, you would say, okay, well, I'm not going to use my headset. And in fact, I know I can log in with both my headset and also on my desktop. I can be logged in twice. So if you were going to do a presentation where you needed to share your screen, you could log in with the headset and do most of it and then say, oh, okay, I'm going to take my headset off and now I'm going to share my screen. And while you're sharing your screen, can you share your screen while you're sharing your webcam, or is it one or the other?
So let me do this right now. Let's find out. So here's a question I have for you, Pete. So I have been in Mozilla Hubs meetings in the past. I've gone to events in Mozilla Hubs, and usually in those spaces, there's a good number of people. So in this custom space that you've created, how many people do you think could be in this world, and where do you sort of see it where it's too heavy for the browser and you might get some glitching?
Well, I basically their default limit for a room is 50. When I set this up, I set it up to 60. So there's nothing to prevent you from trying to do more than 50, but it probably isn't going to work very well. It's probably going to start to bog down because of the audio and all the other issues. But depending on how those 50 people are distributed in the room, how audio zones are set up, you might be able to get above 50.
Okay.
Especially like video game techniques like blockers. I mean, it sort of detracts. And we've got this gorgeous skybox that
Yeah.
lets you like we're way up above the mountains, and that's totally cool. And we have like big long sight lines, and that's totally cool too. But it doesn't help the frame rate. You know what I mean? To be able to see really really far with a lot of people. I don't think the visual is going to be the issue here.
Oh, by the way, to
You
answer
know?
your question, I can't share my camera and my screen at the same time.
Okay, because
Now,
that would sort of be cool
yeah,
if you're sharing your screen to also be able to see the person in a webcam
I do wonder
would be
though
useful.
if one person can share a screen and the other person can share a webcam. I mean, I'm sure that's very possible. And again, when you and I'm right, Pete, right? When you if everyone's sharing the webcam, right, that just adds more load on the browser, so that might be impacted as well.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I'm thinking is that we like and it doesn't have to be enforced by the thing, but as we have our own meetings in here, we
Mm-hmm.
could just say, okay, whoever is sharing the screen gets to share their webcam. But if you had 50 people in here and they were all sharing their webcam, I would imagine that's going to bog down.
Yeah, I mean, again, but I mean, these are some of the challenges that we're all seeing with these virtual worlds. I mean, are they perfect? No, but do they work and can we meet and hang out? Yes, absolutely. Are there limits? Sure. But even in the real world, we find the same challenges in the real world.
Been doing meetings online for
Hmm.
years, and without doing them in VR, and there's all kinds of problems that you get without even having VR in the mix. So it goes without saying that this all relies on technology and the internet, but so does all other remote things rely on the internet, right? And they all other remote things have bandwidth issues when you try to scale them to high numbers of people, right?
Hmm.
But I will say this, and I forget who it is, but it might have even been Zoom. One of the big video conferencing players built technology into their stuff so that they're doing photogrammetry as they're doing the webcam, and they're doing photogrammetry on your head, and they're creating a 3D model of your head. They're getting the texture, they're sending that to everybody else, and then once they get all that going, they're just sending, they're blinking, they're turning their head, they're not sending video. That's how VR works natively. So they
Hmm.
recognize that just, if we have a 3D model of your head and we know how your lips are moving and when you're blinking and stuff, that stuff is very compact. It's almost, you don't need to compress it because it is already compressed, like it is the compressed. Well, I mean, you got to start with what they go back in history. How would we do this in the old days? Well,
Yeah.
in the horse-drawn days, you'd write a letter with a feather pen, you know what I mean, and wait for some guy on a horse to deliver it.
Yeah.
And then we had telegraphs, and then we had telephones.
Sure.
So this is all just sort of like,
It's
it's
also right.
amazing what we can do, but it's really still just we're
I mean,
sending information.
if you look at the early days of the web, right? Web 1.0, right? It was text, so how could you could write something up, but you couldn't show a video, and then people were probably like, wow, how do we do that? And so it's just it's a matter of time and how we explore this idea. So
And need or desire, like we want to be able to do this. Oh, okay, well, how do we do that? Well, we kind of got it working, but there's a bit of lag, and
so look, we have a few more minutes, and so Pete, is there any other place you'd like to take us in this space that maybe we can go to and talk more, or you like to show us?
well, I showed you mainly the things that I've been able to experiment with so
Yeah.
far. There's a few more. There's stuff like collision boxes. There's lots of things like lights, although the team who created our art here, they've kind of baked the lighting in, so we don't really need to use any of those lights, which of course is a performance thing.
Oh, by the way,
I
I
don't
want to mention one thing really quickly, Pete. If you want to come back quickly, hold on, Alan. So what's interesting about the space is it's spatial audio. So as Pete's talking, if I were to turn my head, it changes where the audio comes in from what speaker. So if I'm looking at Pete, his voice comes in through both speakers, but if I turn my head this way, his voice is coming from the left speaker. If I turn this way, it's coming from the right speaker. And if he's farther away from me, he sounds distant. So that experience, the audio experience, is very much like a real world experience, and I think that's a big part of that.
Like literally half of VR is the audio, but it's like in video, in movies and video, the visual stuff gets all the play, the screen, like the attention. But to be honest, the audio is more important, and that, I say that in a movie, in VR, in a video game, the audio is more important. And I always think, and I have no science to prove this, but I think the reason is audio is wired into our brains at a much lower level. It's much
Right.
more primitive sense that we have. And my proof of this is, and the next time you're in a thunderstorm, you looking out the window, you see a flash of light. Does that flash of light make you jump out of your chair?
Right. Yeah. It's the thunder.
It's the thunder. You see the flash of light and you go, oh, look, a flash of light. And then all of a sudden, boom, and then woof, totally involuntary. Your heart kind of goes poof. You can feel there's a surge of adrenaline. Your body gets all freaked out for a few seconds. So
this is really interesting, right? Because with virtual reality, right, we always talk about how it's such a visual experience and an audio experience, but we really focus on the visual. But I get your point. Like what you're saying is like it's really the audio that's really sort of helps immerse us and helps really sort of bring the environment to life. Because you're right, it's
I mean, the visual, it's obvious when I turn my head. It's obvious that everything turns, right? But I'm glad you brought that up, and because even I forget the audio, you know what I mean? But that sells the whole thing. And it goes back to the thing that I keep coming back to about how the performance in VR is all based on audio mixing. In a video game I'm playing on my my PlayStation, they know all the audio ahead of time, right? So mixing it's not a big deal. But in a virtual world, we can't mix it ahead of time because you don't know where all the people are going to be. So
right.
That's the big server side problem. And gotta go look at what Philip Rosedale's doing nowadays.
With his with the work he's doing with audio, like, and he's really done some amazing work in that and how it impacts virtual spaces. And in this space, so this is the FS Studio, what we call it, the virtual hub, and and this was designed by people at FS Studio. We've been testing. We have tested it on another platform, on Spatial, and of course Pete then took that model and then brought it into this space. And really our whole idea and what we're doing is to sort of explore, like, again, what can we do with this type of model? How effective and impactful is it within other platforms? And of course, Pete just showed us how, like the walkthrough in the sense of like this world exists in the metaverse in two different spaces. Again, because we have it in Spatial and now we have it here, and Pete showed us how he can manipulate the room and do other things. So I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, the next phase for me is like I was saying at the beginning, this is an open source server, so all of the code for the 3D, and basically, I believe, is written in React.js. It uses Node.js, which are server-side JavaScript frameworks. The next important thing that I want to do with this is start to mess around with the source code and add fundamental capabilities to this that Hubs doesn't have.
Now, Pete, let me ask you a question from your perspective and your opinion. Obviously in this type of environment, like it's not like this high res environment, and it's a little bit more low resolution, but it still feels immersive. So from your perspective, do you think how important do you think is high res versus low res when it comes to virtual reality for a meeting space?
Well, yeah, it's sort of the use case really plays in, but for a meeting space, if we wanted to use a meeting space to review a 3D model, okay, and the 3D model is a high res 3D model and it has, normal maps and all the different goodies, then we need to be able to show that,
Right.
or it's not a very good candidate for a meeting space. So, and that's where the car companies are going. I mean, when you hear that they use Vario VR headsets, because Vario VR headsets are the equivalent of what was Apple's phrase, pixel perfect, or retina display, right? So it's the same thing in here. To be able to do anything in here, or like any technical review, for a lot of the use cases in here, that's the better way to put it. So right now with the low res headsets, a Quest headset will not meet a lot of the use cases because it can't display enough polygons or enough fidelity. So that's where that's going. But that's just a natural state of technology, is for everything to keep getting better and better and improve. So, the people that are doing reviews of buildings as they're being built and reviewing, is everything cool here? Yeah, you don't want them using a low res headset. Like they're going to miss something that's probably important and potentially could kill people if they don't get it right. So it depends on the use case. This is good enough for a lot of use cases, but not all use cases.
Right. Like we could have we can have a team meeting in here. We could have we could use this as an onboarding tool, right? Where you get a new employee. You can use this room for interviewing new employees, new talent. You can use this room as a way to train people on HR processes, or you can use a room like this to host a podcast. Hence what we're doing.
Yeah.
So hey,
and I mean, we should probably get our shit together. Excuse the vernacular, but we should probably sit over there and, like Alan should be filming. But one of the purposes of this particular episode on the podcast was to just sort of do a tour of this place. So yeah, but you could probably expect that if this becomes our regular podcast spot, then we probably want to sit in these chairs, maybe have some sort of like what do we call our podcast again?
Everything Metaverse.
Everything Metaverse. So yeah, maybe we'll have some signage that says Everything Metaverse that we can turn on or off when we're not doing the podcast. I mean, we could just create it on the fly right now. We could just import an image, stick it up there, and then when we leave, it'll go away. You know what I mean?
How about this? Because we are at the end of our time, Pete. And so how about next episode? Let's do that. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And I think the next episode, let's come back into the space, because I think this is a really interesting space to explore. And I think maybe the next time we come back in, maybe you've done some more work on it. I mean, I think this is really great. But I wanted to thank everybody who tuned in. Of course, Pete, you're always awesome to talk with. And thank you for touring us through the space that you brought in and telling us how it works. So, and of course, Alan, our producer, thanks for doing all that you do, Alan. You are appreciated. And from Pete and I, we want to say, you can't see me waving. Hold on. I'm going to pull up my camera here. Okay. So from here we go. I just want to say thanks, everybody.
Hey.
Bye now.
Later.
Later, Gator. All right.